What elements does a national lifestyle brand need to have?
I think, first of all, we need to address the everyday needs of ordinary families. Secondly, the product should be universal, and it should also bring a sense of happiness to customers. We hope to create a comprehensive lifestyle scenario that can meet 100 different needs in a family's daily life.
Why Uniqlo mother-daughter stores closing? Namakujima opens secret rooms.
Director Du may better understand the needs of Chinese people's daily lives, and our value for money matches the mainstream purchasing power of today's market.
In fact, Chi Cheng and Director Liu have been connected for more than 6 years now. Back then we had just over 30 stores, and today we have more than 180, covering over 70 cities. Just now on my way here, I checked some reviews from Shanghai users about our Ludao stores on Dianping. Users have always felt that this is a hidden gem, with some describing it as an affordable version of Uniqlo or Muji. It seems that people have always had a somewhat vague impression of what Ludao is. Maybe it's about value for money, maybe it's about being accessible. But what exactly does Ludao represent? How should we define Ludao? What exactly are we selling to our customers? How do you personally define Ludao?
Our own understanding of business has evolved along with Ludao's development over the past few years, and I myself have gained many new insights. For example, regarding the reviews you just mentioned on Dianping, why do some people think that way? Or why do they see us as a hidden gem of a store? In fact, a few years ago, I realized that shopping itself is an interesting and enjoyable activity. When it comes to consumption, not only do you want to feel that what you bought is practical and that you have no regrets afterward, but you also want to experience a sense of surprise and happiness at the very moment of purchase. This kind of experience is highly achievable in a store like Ludao, because all the scenarios we create, while ensuring practicality, are designed around the entire lifestyle of a family or an individual. So in this space, you can find many things that surprise you, but behind each of them, they are all practical and useful. What you offer, you need to clearly define both its value as a product for sale and its value as something to be appreciated. Even if a customer picks something up and admires it for a long time because it looks great, that too is a kind of discovery related to lifestyle. That's why we develop a wide variety of items that are useful in a household and can benefit others, things that can move people. At this moment, when others are at Guangludao, they get the feeling of discovering a hidden treasure.
Could you give an example? What kind of product, in what form, resonated with what kind of user?
A colleague once shared with me that he saw a ladle in the store, the kind that's shaped like a dipper for scooping water. So are there still people using this thing now? Indeed, you can see that the general usefulness of such a product has declined compared to 20 years ago. But judging from our brand's presence in more than 70 cities across China, you'll find that many people, when they see this item, still feel that it's a useful and good thing. There are also many other things like this. For example, when we're shopping online or on e-commerce platforms, we often want to buy something but don't actually know what we want to buy. Or rather, only when we know what it is can we search for it. But in a physical store, it's only when you see it that you realize how useful it is. This kind of seeing is believing situation actually solves the problem of discovering what things are available. It gives you a direct sense of which items can bring value to your household, something you can't just type into a search box.
Physical stores have tremendous value. At Luda, cost effectiveness and efficiency are the foundation of our operations. But it's clear that you've incorporated a lot of heuristic, discovery-based elements for users. Originally, I might not have known I needed such a product, but when I'm browsing in Luda and come across it, it might turn into a lifestyle I want.
Yes, what I understand from this is the effectiveness of a lifestyle. We place great importance on the state customers are in after seeing everything you offer rather than hoping they'll buy everything they see. That's also impossible.
Actually, you've mentioned the term lifestyle quite a few times just now. In your opinion, what does it really take to achieve that?
It's a brand that represents the user's lifestyle. First of all, I think a lifestyle brand, well, for most of its products, their functions should have certain lifestyle attributes. It's not that all of your products are like that. The connection between your products shouldn't just be about trade. You can see that there are many things that might not sell that well, but when they are part of your lifestyle, if you take them away, you'll feel really uncomfortable. Sometimes I wonder why, after so many years, a brand becomes recognized as a lifestyle brand. It must be because you've addressed a lot of people's perceptual needs. It has certain platform attributes, and it also has a kind of dependency for the whole family. The biggest feature is that if others can access your channels easily, and there are enough of them, I mean physical channels, or if your supply chain is easier for others to connect with, then most people will stay connected with you in their daily lives over the long term. It becomes a kind of inertia and habit. I think that's a very important aspect of a lifestyle brand.
How would you summarize it? What kind of lifestyle does Ludao advocate? Or have you ever had such a precise definition?
First of all, I think that for lifestyle brands, bring a sense of practicality and simplicity to the everyday lives of families, and this runs through the basic needs of most Chinese households. Because I think that ultimately, for a lifestyle to be recognized, it must be validated by a sufficiently large audience.
As a result, we've seen that in the past, not only the brands you just mentioned like ZARA and Uniqlo, but actually these traditional shopping mall brands have all faced a significant number of store closures and declining same-store sales. In fact, what we've seen is that Ludao has actually given us a big surprise. Our same-store sales in some malls are actually on the rise. So in your opinion, what kind of role does Ludao play in terms of its positioning with consumers and within shopping centers?
Actually, I personally felt this very strongly after the pandemic. First of all, as we manage this brand ourselves, we can clearly sense that we are entering a stock-based market. Typically, this means that you have to find more people to convert and further improve from a smaller pool of customers. So for us, this means that we have to find many key points of efficiency to promote the brand's exposure so that more people become aware of Ludao. The second point is that within a small area like a shopping mall, we are now worried that there aren't enough people coming in, so we focus our efforts more on customer acquisition. In fact, we have managed to maintain or even increase the number of people coming in compared to before.
The proportion of people who come in to buy things has increased compared to before.
Do you think that the cost effectiveness, the mass market basic needs, and the lifestyle we advocate, as defined by Director Lu, are more in line with the current era?
Before the pandemic, I believe that most customers might have thought, I don't necessarily have to buy from Ludao, because even if I spend a little more, it's not a big deal to buy something else. This is the second, slightly larger, shopping plan. Previously, it was fragmented, and people would just buy whatever they saw. Now, it has become more planned. For example, today the weather has turned cooler, so I might need to buy some clothes. The people around me, including my family, are no longer so fragmented. Instead, we all focus on handling these things together within this short cycle. At this point, you'll realize that the most crucial thing is making a careful choice. I feel that our advantage in this area has become much more pronounced than before, and that's something I can really sense.
That is, the cost-performance ratio and quality-to-price ratio of the products we define at Ludao actually stand out even more during users' repeated comparisons and planned purchases. In fact, when it comes to the competitive landscape, we just talked about leading brands of the past like Uniqlo. Back then, Mr. Liu Jingjie said he wanted to open 2,000 or 3,000 stores in China. But up to today, that number seems to have stalled at just over 900 stores, and in 2024, we've even seen some stores closing. So, looking at this phenomenon, what changes do you think have taken place on the competitive or peer side, or more broadly, on the supply side of the entire industry and among these brands?
In recent years, the performance of good international brands in the Chinese market has been constrained by certain changing trends of the current era. There may still be some issues with how well they match overall consumer demand. Now, international brands actually have many excellent qualities that are worth us learning from in the long run. But I still believe that we have the strongest sensitivity to the pain points of mass consumption among Chinese people right now, especially in the apparel category. There is already an almost complete gap on the brand side. There's no value for money. Or rather, there are very few brands that truly offer value for money.
Doesn't Uniqlo represent cost effectiveness?
From the perspective of its international supply chain, Uniqlo does have the capability to offer value for money. But personally, I still think it's a bit expensive, especially in more lower-tier markets.
I think this is something everyone is really curious about. You see, Uniqlo's store numbers are declining, while our Ludao stores are seeing same-store growth. And we're still planning a very aggressive store expansion goal. This contrast definitely reflects something deeper. Regarding the value that products offer to users, you just mentioned some of the fragmented needs in lower-tier markets. These needs can't be easily met with a one-size-fits-all inventory. Could you give an example? For instance, what products have you developed that they don't have, which can better meet the needs of a broader range of users?
I think there are two business models that we are willing to pursue, which perhaps others are not willing to take on. The first is actually about the various endpoint situations in different cities. When it comes to the capabilities of shopping centers, we implement differentiated management strategies. This allows us to determine the appropriate store size for each location. In fact, in many places, we've managed to find ways to achieve a good management return on investment through these variations. And this requires some somewhat professional calculations because we've been doing this for a long time, and I think our calculations have become increasingly sophisticated. The second thing, which is a dimension I personally really like, is that we are now focusing on a single apparel format targeting a specific controllable commercial environment, for example, in an area where the population isn't that large. Or if the shopping centre's operations aren't that outstanding, you'll notice that the stores we open in these locations are between 280 and 450 square meters. We actually manage the entire cost ratio of their expenses. Why do we do this? It's because we have expectations regarding sales. We anticipate that sales won't be high. In this situation, we've found that when cost management is excellent, the return on investment and profits are also good.
Very good. Our business model will penetrate into more areas that they might not currently consider as core. Some markets place more emphasis on using more universal definitions, but we will go there because that's where the users are. On the contrary, I think in reverse, how can I control my own cost structure so that I can survive and, on that basis, make a profit, while still ensuring that users can see us more and buy our product?
When we often go to a certain area in the lower part of the city, let's say there are only about 100,000 people living nearby, but in such an area, when we open a pure pickup point, we expect its monthly revenue to be between 300,000 and 400,000 yuan, and we would typically staff it with about 6 to 7 people. We found that with good management, we can still achieve a solid return. Actually, this is something that requires financial matching. This kind of store probably only needs just over 400 square meters. If it's 500 or 600 square meters, even if it's purely commission-based, your investment costs will increase. We also precisely match the store's inventory, making its stock turnover more efficient and reasonable.
As mentioned earlier, regarding the shopping mall channel, in fact, this year Ludao has entered Shanghai. I believe that our brand's momentum in the shopping mall sector and the entire investment circle is continuously building. We are accumulating both reputation and assets. Looking at our Ludao's position and our negotiating power in shopping centers now, what level have we actually reached?
In recent years, because of the universality and mass appeal of Ludao's business model, as well as the richness of its SQ management, we actually need to open large stores in locations with high foot traffic. For these large stores, I believe we have a very clear understanding of the release and demand for the livelihood segment in shopping centers. In this kind of environment, we are actually able to achieve sufficient throughput and strong commercial returns. Especially in these large community-oriented shopping centers, our focus on livelihood needs is still very prominent in the past 2 years.
So, are people actually offering us better rental terms?
Yes, that's very obvious. Right now, most of our rental agreements are in the pure commission format I just mentioned. This is the most common arrangement for our newly opened projects.
In fact, this is getting closer and closer to the property terms that leading brands in first-tier cities used to get back in the day. Actually, from the very beginning, we chose this paid membership model. What kind of business considerations did you have at the time when making this decision?
This was something we thought about in the early days of starting the business. If we look at it from both sides, there were two problems to solve. From the consumer's perspective, we needed to provide more services and greater product value specifically for Ludao's members. We also needed to offer more worry-free solutions, as well as a wide range of additional experiences. So I think it's very important to identify who this group is and what actions they are taking. As for the actual membership fee, I think it's a light fee system.
However, by setting a threshold, you can significantly filter out those who may not truly agree with this philosophy. People who don't agree with this concept or product system are filtered out, leaving only those who truly recognize its value.
Sometimes I tell everyone that our members are different from many other members. We paid to become members because essentially this institution is very strong. The moment someone pays to become a member, it's actually a reflection of their evaluation of your company. If they don't think highly of you, they definitely won't spend that 20 yuan.
So The growth in membership numbers is also a very important indicator for you to look at the Ludao brand from another perspective, including the store operation situation, because it reflects overall recognition. Also, once a user has spent money once, isn't their probability of making a repeat purchase significantly higher?
At its peak, over 70% of users have already done so. In cities where several Luda stores have already opened, if you open another Luda store, you'll notice the daily consumption. First of all, 90% of the customers are members. Among these 90% members, 40% to 50% are long-time members. In cities like Xi'an, where we've had stores open for more than 10 years, the daily customers are mainly members and the proportion of new members is not very high.
It has become a stable, purpose-driven shopping place for a specific group of people, almost like a community supermarket with a membership system.
Among the people shopping in the mall, a large number are Ludao members, so they will definitely visit Ludao.
And actually, this also touches on what I think is an important choice regarding sales channels. In your opinion, with a membership-based e-commerce system, including the way we move online, what differences does the membership model create compared to other brands? What about the online business?
We launched it in the first half of last year. We developed our own mini-program store, and in the future, we'll have our own app to drive this forward. Without much managerial intervention, it was entirely initiated and formed spontaneously by our own members. Next year, we should be able to reach over 100 million. There are some characteristics here that are, of course, completely different from conventional online business models. For example, the return rate. The standard return rate for the Ludao Benxing mini program is only about 2.8%.
In fact, in the apparel category, the industry's online transaction return rate is generally above 5% or even 6%. This difference actually comes from a certain kind of relationship between our users and us. This very stable purchasing behavior means that their expectations can be consistently met on Ludao. At the same time, as you just mentioned, planned shopping is also a very important factor because the customer knows exactly what product they need at a specific time. Offline, these stable sales channels have their own traffic fields for interacting and communicating with users. So, since the ecosystem you are building is based on offline development, what approach will you take to embrace this?
First of all, I believe that in our own strategic planning, we must treat this as an important channel whose value is absolutely not less than any physical store. So I think if we want to make good use of this, in the next 3 years, we will need to develop a plan with an internet mindset for how to manage Ludao's inventory online and use that to drive progress. In the past, we've seen many brands use the internet as a tool to boost themselves, and in the end, it simply helped their original physical brands increase their sales share a bit. This approach really just treats the internet as a tool rather than as a company or a solid project to drive forward. This kind of mindset is only for exposure and actually gives up on a lot of exploration for the physical side. Then over time, there really won't be any future in it.
In fact, the model we are most likely going to build at Ludao will still focus on our members as the core of our operations.
So we must continue to explore the internet.
Right now, we have just under 200 stores, close to 200. In fact, by 2025, how many stores are we planning to open?
Our current store opening capacity, both on the supply chain side and the operations side, can support about 150 stores. That means we can add 150 new stores in a year. Ideally, we hope that out of these 150 stores, at least 100 can be directly managed within our own system. We also hope that the remaining 50 can be developed through co-creation, either with external partners or through other open franchise models, so that we can grow together.
Looking at our current situation, we've actually already opened community-type shopping centers and city center-type shopping centers in different cities, and even some street-side formats. What different types of typical customers have we already seen emerging now?
In fact, among the formats that we can replicate and scale up ourselves, there are really only two. One is the standard format, which we call the shop type. This format currently ranges from 650 to 1,300 square meters. The store we're in today is our larger flagship store, which we call the stock type format, meaning it's over 1,300 square meters. The 650 to 1,300 square meter range is the standard lifestyle format for Ludao. These stores represent the largest business volume that we are currently replicating every day. Out of our more than 180 stores now, about 150 of them are this type of store. In addition, last year we made a new decision to replicate another store model, which we call the selected store. It's an express format. The main feature of this format is that it focuses on apparel, aiming to improve efficiency and the effectiveness of clothing. The selected model, is paired with fresh flowers, so we believe that the apparel industry still has great potential. Even after the current momentum has declined and space has been freed up, apparel remains one of the most important forces in our main product structure. So in itself, it can become the value of a lifestyle centered around apparel, and this format has tremendous growth potential. In the early stages, we must exercise restraint in managing it to maximize its output and returns. But I believe that as we move into the midterm, we will discover how to manage higher frequency and efficiency within this single apparel business line. As a result, we will open single brand clothing stores with 500, 600, 700, or even 800 locations, focusing on higher commercial dimensions. This is definitely a path we will take.
Now, coming back to the products, you just defined that Ludao aims to solve 100 different problems in consumers' daily lives. We have over 3,000 SKUs actually spanning everything from the green plants at the entrance to clothing and household goods, tea drinks, and even some food items. So behind this rich assortment of categories, from a business perspective, what do you think is the value and role that each of these different formats plays within a single store?
Clothing is a very important matter for a family. Most likely every family's wardrobe has quite a few clothes, but within our entire lifestyle mix, you'll notice that the categories we've chosen each have their own characteristics. As for gardening, I believe that in the future, gardening will definitely become an essential category for the sense of happiness in every Chinese household. It allows us to imagine more beauty in life, and because we work to maintain this, it truly becomes a wonderful brand.
Yes, thinking about the value that different categories play in this business role. For example, the category of green plants attracts a great many people. Young people, or rather a broader range of users, come into the store to discover your products. What kind of roles do these items play? Could you share more with us from this perspective?
Today, in a place like Ludao, as a consumer, I realize that it has the comprehensive management ability to present everything my family needs for daily life. And after these products have been curated by a company like Ludao, they become much more practical and valuable. This aspect really impresses me, as very few brands are able to fully address it. So it brings things that increase happiness, enrich our culture, and promote an environmentally friendly attitude. I think this allows the brand culture of Ludao to be felt through its products.
So actually for you, this whole range of different categories is really a comprehensive presentation of the users, rather than each category simply adding up to form a more complete definition of the solution you want to present to users. In the past, we've always emphasized cost effectiveness. So what are our principles and standards for pricing across different categories?
Let me talk about our basic principles. First, for the entire apparel category, we must adhere to the pricing strategy required by Ludao's own business model. Our pricing multiplier is the lowest. Basically, we operate at about twice the cost price. That is, we mark up the cost by 1 time, the cost multiplied by 2. Of course, after offsetting the costs, we still have a sufficiently good profit margin to support us. If your gross profit is too low, it's just not realistic. For non-apparel general merchandise categories, we typically only maintain a gross profit margin structure of about 30%. We use a standard supermarket mindset to serve daily necessities with rigid demand. For example, if a cup costs 10 yuan, we would most likely set the price between 13 and 15 yuan. Why do we keep the markup so low? The simplest reason is the essential nature of daily use items and their production characteristics. Whether you produce 10,000 or 100,000 of these items, it's the same. The quality is industrially standardized. The second point is that with the current level of channel development and the transparency brought by information technology, all these strategies and sales have become part of a transparent pricing and value system. That's right.
So can we understand it this way? In these categories of daily goods, users have a concrete sense of value for many products. Is it more direct and impactful to try to grasp Director Lu's idea of cost effectiveness?
For stores like ours that sell only one type of daily good, where customers come just to buy that item, I predict our business model wouldn't work in a shopping mall. But if we provide enough essentials to meet a family's needs and have a large enough SKU matrix, consumers could come in with a cart and each person could fill it with purchases. If the average transaction value per customer reaches several hundred yuan, I think that's when this business model can be sustained. But before that, since we also have apparel and the overall range of categories in this store is quite broad, we can actually support each other.
In order to support such a massive range, first in terms of product types and also in terms of product quantity, it definitely requires us to carry out very deep and complex management on the supply chain side. I'm not sure, among the suppliers you found so far, from clothing to daily goods, what kind of profiles do they have? What are they like?
What kind of companies are they and what are their profiles? Most are small and medium-sized enterprises, but there are also some large companies in the apparel sector. China is developed in this regard. There are companies as big as publicly listed firms and state-owned enterprises with their own industrial chains. They own their own land and factories. On the smaller end, there are OEM factories making general merchandise. We have 200 to 300 partners, and Fushilin alone has over 100 partners. The biggest characteristic of manufacturing companies in the Chinese market is that many of them have people who are capable of producing products just as well as the major factories. It's just that in the past, they haven't found very good channels or opportunities to promote their products, or they needed enough production capacity and volume to support them.
So what kind of partnership have they actually established with us?
In the past 2 years, doesn't Ludao now have over 180 stores in its channel? The actual effectiveness generated has already addressed their production capacity issues. We hope to help them achieve a more reasonable production capacity soon. The factory also needs to have reasonable profits in order to support the operation of its machines and workers. So we will work hard together with the factory to carry out more commercial activities in this regard.
Looking at this category from above, haven't we already united a group of partners who share inventory with us, co-develop products, and even take on more financial responsibility for us at the raw material stage for Ludao Island because they believe you can sell this product? This is a group of co-creative suppliers who share risks with us.
Quite a number of our partners have reached this kind of agreement with us. Since we are not a high-frequency, fast-moving consumer product, we have to respect the reasonable sales cycle of this product in the market when considering our returns. Once everyone reaches this consensus, our planning becomes much stronger.
This makes the whole thing meaningful in the long term. Because Ludao can maintain stable sales, they are also willing to take on planned production and help share the responsibility with you. They are willing to take on more of the risks and responsibilities from inventory to turnover. Finally, there's another topic I'd like to discuss with you. Actually, before Ludao went online and before we had so many stores, we experienced 3 years of the pandemic. How did we get through that period? And looking ahead, how do you feel about the future? What do you personally think the road or the path forward will actually look like, say, about 3 years from now?
What Mr. Wan just talked about really left a deep impression on me, especially the first question. The reason we were able to make it through the pandemic is actually closely related to the previous topic you mentioned. Before that, all of your partners were aligned with you, and this consensus was a very important support behind the scenes that allowed us to get through the pandemic. During this process, we actually realized that the liquidity of Ludao's business itself is quite good. The value of liquidity far exceeds that of profit. So throughout this whole period, Ludao may have also incurred losses. There were some losses, but this liquidity supported the smooth operation of both the back end and the front end. Consumers also felt that there wasn't much decline in any aspect, and even the factories thought things were still acceptable. During the pandemic, as long as the doors were open, there was enough sales and cash flow coming in. So, what will Ludao look like in the next 3 years? In my mind, the most important thing is that it will become a true national brand for everyone, clearly taking a step forward toward becoming a household name. If you want to truly gain recognition, you can't rely solely on some sales tactics. And your channel value can't be fully realized either. For example, with online business, it's impossible to have long-term direct interaction with customers, frequent displays, or let customers physically touch and see the products themselves. How could people possibly develop a sense of a national brand this way? So I think when a large number of physical stores reach an annual turnover of about 3 to 5 billion yuan, the energy that comes from so many people making purchases, from so many people voting with their choices, is immense. It's actually enormous. If a lifestyle consumer brand in this industry reaches a scale of over 5 billion yuan, at least in today's market, it can be considered as being among the leading companies. In the next 3 years, we should definitely be a company with more than 500 stores. We started off quite slowly overall. This is our tea space from May to October, and we just happened to...
Let me say that again.
Let me recommend this to everyone. This tea contains sunflowers, roses, and little daisies. These flowers don't even look real.